The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Ardor SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today, William Morales, host of the Peer-to-Peer podcast. William, on your show, you have like-minded individuals in the real estate market, as well as those who want to be in the real estate market. But William focuses on Reits, crowdfunding, but his niche, creative financing. Everybody loves creative financing, whether it's lease purchases, creative financing, or owner selling, or owner financing. William's got a story to tell about it. Welcome to the show, William.
Well, Timothy, thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start at the beginning. I always like to hear the origination story. You've got quite a bit of experience in real estate, and now, of course, you host yourself a very popular podcast, the Peer-to-Peer podcast. Let's hear how you started and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. It was a long journey. I started getting interested in business when I was in my mid-40s. I'm 60 now.
I think you're lying to me on that.
No,
Looking good,
I wish.
brother. Looking
Thank you,
good.
sir. Thank you. It was in my mid-40s. I was working at a hospital, and I remember I was talking to a sales rep, and he's a vendor, and we were talking about business. He said, "Oh, you should get into real estate." That didn't even cross my mind. I'm like, "Yeah, right." Anyway, long story short, I bought a book. I wish I should have kept it, but I gave it away to someone. I think it was The Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing. I read it, then I just started getting interested in it, and then I started going to seminars. I was a seminar junkie for a long time.
Right.
That's all I would do pretty much every month. And then my first investment was real estate stock, a REIT, which is pretty much a company that might own, let's say, warehouses.
Right.
And 90% of the money that they get they have to share with their shareholders for tax purposes, among other things.
Pass through, yeah.
Yeah, pass through. So I started buying REITs. I started getting more and more interested. And the thing is, Tim, and I want to let your audience know, pick something and stay with it. I was HDTV around that time, 2005, 6, 7 was very popular. I was hooked. I was watching HDTV practically every day.
Right.
So I wanted to fix and flip. I wanted to do wholesale. Then I wanted to do tax lien investing. Then I wanted to do tax deed, buy and hold. It wasn't until 2016, almost 8-9 years later, give or take, that I finally, it hit me, owner financing, which basically means you become the bank, you receive payments, the tenant buyer that's there, they do all the repairs, they do all the maintenance, they're in charge of everything. Like I said, just imagine yourself like a Bank of America or a Chase. You just collecting money, and that's it. That's the best part, and that was my niche. It took me that long to decide. So 2017 was my first property. I think it's August of 2017. And now it's 5 years. And then the second purchase I did was in 2020, which was a lease purchase, which we could talk about that later. But anyway, But that was my journey, Tim. I was just all over the place. And I just, like I said, tell the audience, pick a niche and stay with it. Don't be like me, flying through the, shiny object syndrome. That's what I had.
Right. We hear a lot about the shiny object syndrome, and it's probably more prevalent today than ever. You and I are of similar generations, I'll say, our age. And something you touched upon right at the beginning, William, was you used to be a seminar junkie. And I'm right there with you. I probably sat next to you at a seminar. I mean,
I'm pretty sure we did.
That's just the way it was back then, And I started, you're familiar with probably Bear Stearns, and I started there working in real estate investment trust, packaging them and retailing them to folks. And that's kind of my first interest in real estate kind of came around. And but yeah, I was a real estate junkie, and I would go to all the seminars, and everybody at the seminar even would have a shiny object, right? They told the same story, but they repackaged it differently.
Yeah.
And you have a great strategy in saying stick to one thing, because there is wholesaling, there is syndicate, there is, creative financing is wonderful. And that's what I really want to focus on with you today.
Sure.
But it's that buy and hold mentality. It's not buy and hold, but as far as real estate goes, but that buy and hold, the long term, straight and narrow, and be the master of something, right? I mean, you've got to stick to one thing and do it really well. So I love that advice. I think that's fantastic. So tell me about owner financing. Let's start there. What is it about, and can everybody do it?
Yeah, I think everybody could do it. And I'm not gonna say should do it because some people want to be wholesalers, and
Yeah.
that's understandable. Like I said, pick a niche and then just stay with it. So with owner financing, when I saw my a webinar, which was in late 2016, the gentleman would buy the property cash. And that's how I did my first deal, my own cash. And now he has private lenders, which is something I'm looking more now into doing. Basically, since I live in New York City, the properties here look like phone numbers, the prices. I mean, it's just
Right.
outrageous. And you know that, Tim,
I know that
yeah.
where I'm at.
So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So then I started looking in other markets. And like I said, with creative financing, owner financing, basically you own the property like I did 100%. So let me tell that story. I saw it on realtor.com. I did my research pretty much from December of 2016 through pretty much August, September 2016, right? I'm
Right.
sorry, 2017. Um, so I did my studying. I looked at videos. I listened to podcasts. I bought tons of books, which I'll recommend to your audience. And I just started learning more about creative financing, owner financing, especially. So I found something in Pittsburgh, the 15210 area code in Pittsburgh. So I saw a property. I reached out to the realtor and I said, listen, I see this property's on the market for like, I think it was like 100 days, 101 days. So I
Right.
made an offer. I think it was bank only, if I remember correctly. I think it was by PNC Bank.
Beautiful.
So they wanted to sell it for 27,000. I offered 8,000 in cash.
Wow.
They said no, that's too low. There's no way the bank is going to go for it. So I said, okay, well, thanks anyway. 2 weeks later, they called me back. I explained to the realtor what I wanted to do. I wanted to own it free and clear, but then sell it to a potential homeowner that might have, a bad credit because of, maybe personal issues or medical issue. Maybe it
Sure.
wasn't their fault. Um, so the realtor was spot on. He goes, yeah, I know what you want to do. Sure, no problem. So I bought the property for 8,000. He asked me, is my offer still available? I said, yeah, sure. So I wired 8,000. I already had what you call it? A loan servicing company in place. I had a title company
Closing
in
it.
place.
Right.
Yeah, and the agent helped me with that also. So I just wanted, and the agent was nice enough to take pictures,
Wow.
videos, and yeah, and Tim, those are hard to find. Those type of realtors.
Oh, for sure.
So
You
anyway,
really got to sell the big picture to them, right? I mean,
oh my God. Well, this one I did. I said, listen, you're going
yeah,
to commission from the bank, but you could also get commission from me
right,
by finding me a tenant buyer.
right.
Found one within 2 weeks. And since September, I think 2017 to now, that guy's been paying me every month, even through COVID.
Wow,
I don't have to do any repairs,
that's
to
great.
do any maintenance. Taxes and insurance he pays, but I keep that money on the side just in case from the cash flow I get from the property. You never know. Um, and I just started liking more and more creative financing and being the owner, which is free and clear. And I
Right.
just in case, in that situation, if they don't pay, then it's a foreclosure. But in my situation, I would probably do like a loan modification or whatever. But Tim, the payment is low. I think he owes me 342.07 less $35 that the loan servicing company gets.
Wow.
So again, I could have sold it for higher. I sold it for the
Right.
same price that the bank wanted to sell it for. But that was my first day. I was just excited to get something.
You're getting your feet wet. Your chops. You're getting the deals down. Whether it's a
Yes.
whether it's an $8,000 home or an $8 million home, a lot of the processes are still the same, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's just maybe another one or two zeros.
Right.
So that was my first deal. And I love creative financing. My second deal was in 2020, during the pandemic, around the same time, August, September. A gentleman, and this was from Zillow, and I'm not a fan of Zillow
Right.
anymore, and I'll tell you
Nobody
more
is.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I ran into a few scammers there, but this property, I called the owner. Again, this property was on the market, I think 60 to 70 days, and he
Right.
wanted 260 for it in Orlando. I said, listen, I'll give you full price if you let me pay you for the conversation. He said, no, I want my money out.
Right.
I want to move, because he wanted to move from Florida to Georgia to be close to his family, friends, and all that.
Right.
2 weeks later, again, he called me and he says, how does this thing work? So Tim, I sent him a lot of paperwork, the pros and cons of it. I also, without him asking, my credit report, or at least the front page, showing that I had a good credit score of 7 something at the time.
Right.
Again, that was my credibility kit.
Right.
Then a few days after I sent him that, he called me and he says, okay, let's do it. So I gave him $5,000 down. So this is a lease purchase, which I'm going to buy.
Right.
And then with his permission, I sublet it to a tenant buyer. I bought it for 260, sold it for 275.
There you go.
10% down payment, and the monthly cash flow was I think 150. I pay him 1,600, and the tenant buyer pays me 1,750.
Right.
So, and that's a lease purchase. That's another form of creative financing.
Right. It's
But hopefully I wasn't too all over the place.
Yeah. Well, no, but it turns into what I affectionately call, and have for other businesses, mailbox money, right? I mean, it's they own the home. They actually own the home. So they're doing all the repairs. They're taking
Yes.
the onus for everything. You're not having to hire a property management company to come in and, take care of every scratch on the wall or every pipe that breaks. And of course, and I did want to ask this, William, and it's kind of it's not the uglier side, but it could be the darker side of it. Default issues on that. I've been through that process before, and I'm looking around who's listening to me right now. But in certain areas that I have invested in, there's kind of a cycle of folks that come through, and I want to give them the opportunity of ownership, transparent as can be. But I do get, there are a lot of defaults. There are a lot of folks that just disappear into the night, where I just go right back into the cycle. Have you had that experience, or?
No, not yet. I mean, in the
Okay.
few properties that I have, I've been lucky. People have been paying on time. I
Excellent.
think, and also in Orlando, my brother was there. I have a brother that lives there, so it was easier. So he was my eyes and ears
There you
there.
go.
And like in Pittsburgh, I had the realtor. So I think if anybody's going to invest out of state, like for us, Tim, since we live in high end places,
Sure.
the main thing is try to get boots on the ground. And,
Right.
there's companies that I'll suggest that they could look for. Also, if you have family in those areas, that will help. But so far, so good. Everybody's been paying on time, but just like you, and if that happened to me, now one thing is we're in charge of the repairs, especially with the lease purchase.
Right.
So that's what I assured the owner. I'm like, no, we're going to repair it, and again, the buyer that's there now is supposed to close sometime this month. So I'll be out of that deal, get the $15,000 check, less expenses,
Right.
fees and all that, taxes, how that goes.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm looking to do more of that.
There you go.
And there's other ways to get into real estate. Let's say if that scares you, like what me and Tim talked about, what people might not pay, you might have to foreclose or evict. There's other platforms. Like
For
one of
sure.
the platforms I use, Tim, is a company called Fundrise. I'm not affiliate with them, but they're a REIT, and they invest in multifamily properties. So for some of your audience, if they don't have the money or they feel a little,
Right.
scared, they could start off with that, as little as a couple of $100, or buy a real estate stock that's
Right.
on the,
Sure.
and you could buy one share. Again, it's all about just getting your feet wet. And that's how I got my feet wet, by buying real estate stocks and REITs right
Yeah.
before I bought my first property.
Yeah, and I'll clarify real quick, William. I didn't mean that comment earlier as something to worry about. It's actually, and this is why I look around, because I don't want this to sound callous. I don't want it to sound callous. It's a benefit if you structure it properly. that people move out into the night. And that's a protection thing. You know what? You know as well
You
as
can
I do.
resell it again. Right.
Right.
And you can resell it again
I
and
can
get
resell it
another
again.
10% down payment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 20, whatever
Right.
you asking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I just start a whole new cycle. And
Yeah.
I don't want people to do, I want people to own homes that maybe were in a situation where they couldn't before.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to turn that possibility of a negative into a positive. And the positive is there's another person waiting right behind that one to move in. It's just like renting, but you own it and you get the tax breaks for owning it and you get the
Yes.
principal upside. So I love what you're doing for sure. So tell me a little bit more about, you know, you've talked about creative financing. Of course, we just talked about some of the ins and outs and pitfalls to look out for. Tell me about the legalese of it. You know, do you use an attorney, or do you just kind of wait for the closing company to dock it out for you, or do you have kind of a set pattern? You know, when I work with closing companies, you know, they have everything lined out. They charge a pretty penny, but when you're when you're creative financing, obviously we want to mitigate those costs.
Yeah. The first property I used a title company.
Okay.
And the second property with Orlando, I use a lawyer.
Okay.
I looked it up myself. I made a few phone calls and I said, or not even a few phone calls, sorry. Let me take that back. I sent a few emails and they all answer back, yes, we do creative finance. Yes, we do those all the time. So look
Nice.
for agents. I'm sorry, lawyers that do that. And you could just email them. Just look for attorneys, real estate attorneys in certain cities. Google
Right.
it. That's what I did. And I found about 5 or 6, and I just sent them all an email. Some responded, some didn't, but the ones that did respond say, yeah, we do creative financing all the time. Yes, we understand the paperwork. So, and there's title companies there in every city. There's, I think, 1 or 2 that cover pretty much 50 states. But everybody, you should get a local attorney
Sure.
or a title company because it's just better. And so for these deals, I use the MLO also. I didn't do it myself. With the Dodd-Frank Act, and you want to be compliant. Even my first deal, I did a MLO. Qualify them. I got them in
Right.
credit repair. I got all that. And again, for those who are starting out, you can get those either through our podcasts, Bigger Pockets,
Right.
meetup groups, local RIAs, so you could find those team members really easy. LinkedIn, make a LinkedIn profile,
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how are you, tell me about your search, you know, how you search
Yeah.
for properties and how you find the properties.
Well, right now I'm going again through realtor.com. So I use
Okay.
realtor.com. I use listsource.com. Now, listsource, you could come up with a list yourself of absentee homeowners, and you could look at a video like on YouTube or something, and they'll give you the directions how to work it. But listsource is a great avenue to go to find deals. I started looking at Facebook Marketplace. Believe it or not, they have
Yeah.
properties available with also like the seller's information there. The other day, I looked at biggerpockets.com. They have a marketplace
Isn't that
of,
great?
yeah, of property. So you have the avenues. Now, if you want to do the freeway, then you do Realtor, Facebook, and Bigger Pockets. If you want to get a list of absentee homeowners, then you do List Source. And you could buy, I think the minimum, I think it's 50, $60, and you get a list of maybe 100 to 200 names.
That's
Again,
great.
which is easy. And then you just mail out letters. Again, just look at a YouTube video and they'll give you how to work the criteria. So that's what I use now. I've used pretty much those 3, 4 avenues to try and find deals.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell me about your books.
Okay. So I got a few books that I want to recommend to your audience. I wish I wrote them, but Tim, I'm not that good of a writer.
There
So
you go.
the first book, hopefully it could come out. It doesn't come out backwards, but the first book is this one. I don't know if you audience can
Yeah,
see
My
it. It's
Life, A
called,
Thousand Houses, The Art of Owner Financing. Yeah.
yeah, great book. It has the numbers. Like I'm trying to see if I could find. Yeah, so he has pretty much like the numbers. Oh, sorry.
There
Like
you
the
go.
numbers, how he works and everything. So that's a great book to start, The Art of Owner Financing. The second one is called Real Estate on Your Terms. and this is by
Nice.
Chris Prefontaine, and all of those, and they have case studies. They have they work with lease options, owner financing, and subject to, which pretty means subject to the existing finance. That's hard. I haven't done that yet, so I can't speak about that one since I haven't done it
Right.
yet. And the last book is another good book, is Lease Options and Subject to Deals.
Okay.
So those are the definitely three books I recommend. And and the fourth book, when you start your journey to real estate, you got to know math, right, Tim? You
For
know how that
sure.
goes.
Got to do it.
Uh,
You got to be quick about it too sometimes. Yeah.
yes, and there's a book that I have. I should have bought it. Bought out. It's called uh, "What Every Investor Needs to Know About Cash Flow," and I think 36 other formulas
Right.
or something like that. It's by Frank Gallinelli.
Okay.
Um, I would say get that first.
Okay.
Learn real estate math. Like Tim said, you gotta be quick on the math. You gotta have a calculator, and everything is there,
Right.
right, Tim? Everything is
Right.
could be
It's a
done
numbers game. It's a
as a
numbers
numbers
game.
game.
That's why I liked your story so much about your first purchase. You know, it's like anything else. You know how restaurants or stores
Yeah.
put that first dollar bill in a frame, right? And they'll put it up on the
Yeah.
wall. And, you know, sometimes it's a story to tell, but
Yeah.
your story is pretty neat because that PNC Bank $8,000 offer. I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to make the joke. What was this, 1935? I mean, $8,000? Well, I can't get a parking spot in Southeast Florida for $8,000. My son pays. He's down at the University of Miami, and he pays. He's like, Dad, I need $850 to park, and I go, let me tell you what you need to walk. You know,
Yeah.
bring a car back here, and you need to walk. That's what you need to do. So
And
yeah,
and
that's a great story, though. I mean, I really
and
like.
for your audience too, if you go to realtor.com, right, and the criteria to search, don't even just leave it blank.
Yeah,
Just put in the price point 0 to 50,000, and you'll see a couple of thousand properties.
that's
Like
fantastic. Yeah,
so, like for me and Tim, we live well, Tim lives in Florida, but when we both in the East Coast, I live in New York. Our prices here look like phone numbers.
right. It's ridiculous
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And so, but in the Midwest, in the South, upper
Right.
Northwest, or upper North, you'll find properties that are in decent. Now you gotta do your due diligence like I've done.
For sure.
But you could find properties for under 50,000. There's still foreclosures, like I forgot, I think through Bigger Pockets, I saw some properties that were, for auction starting at bid, I think at 15,000,
Yeah,
ten
that's
thousand.
crazy.
So there's properties out
And it's
there. You just gotta
it's
look.
and it's so automated now. I mean, talking about how you and I were the junkies, you know, we're going from seminar to seminar. And I remember leaving the seminar thinking, great, I can buy all these books for, whatever, put a G out of my pocket and buy all these books. And they're all going to say the same thing: run down to the courthouse, wait on the steps, and that's how it
Yeah.
was, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's how it was.
bid on the house and hope that the 50 other people that were professionals at this didn't outbid you. And now it's like, you want to bid on this house? Yes. Click next. Click.
Click of a button.
I could make 100 bids today,
Yeah.
right?
It's incredible. It's
It's
incredible.
incredible. And as long as I have good funds to prove it, I get, and I can make the 48 hour, prove that I can pay for it or whatever the case may be. It's just so easy. And then the creative financing, it's just a little elbow grease, right? I mean,
Yeah. Anybody could do it. I really
anybody
believe
can.
anybody could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little elbow grease, making a couple of phone calls, and then usually you're doing someone a service, right, William? I
Yeah.
mean, you feel that way. I mean, you feel like
Yeah, because you want to
done.
help. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you're looking to help a homeowner that a might have bad credit, but it might not be their fault. A medical bill, maybe they lost their job. Again, no fault on their own.
right,
And you like Tim said, you helping a community out by getting homeowners, and that's still the American dream of owning
right,
a home.
right.
Listen, I live in New York City. Believe me, if I was anywhere else, I would have bought a home by now. you
Right.
know?
Oh, trust me, when I moved to Southeast Florida from Arizona, and when moved from one sunshine state to the other,
No,
let me
yeah.
tell you, the sun, that's the state of the rising sun. This is the state of the rising prices. When I got here, I was so excited. I was like, wow, look at all these homes we can buy, because things were kind of moderately different. and I live about 2 blocks from the beach, and
Yeah.
they won't even let me walk by their houses now. It's like, hey, buddy, you don't qualify. Oh, I'm sorry, I was just going to the beach. But yeah, so it's a
No, I
different game,
agree.
and I'm with you on that. But you know what? Things always correct, and things always take
Yeah,
care.
right now it might be a good time to get in. But like I
Yeah,
said, start off with a maybe a real estate stock and get your feet wet.
yeah,
These books that I recommend, you could get those. Listen to Tim's podcast. You can listen to mine.
for sure.
There's plenty of education. Look at YouTube videos on creative finance. You'll see a couple of thousand there.
Right. Well, if you want it bad enough, the information's out there. William, I'm going to give you the last word. Any last words for my listeners, and then we'll sign off from there. Any thoughts?
Yeah, again, like I repeated earlier, pick a niche, study it, become an expert at it. If you become bored with, let's say, creative financing, then you want to go to maybe developing properties, or maybe you want to go into auctions, but
Right.
always try to get that niche. Forget the shiny object syndrome. Don't be like me. Don't let years and years pass by.
Yeah.
Just make the leap, make the leap.
Take
Have
our
faith. You could do it.
yeah.
Make the leap.
Take our experience. William, it's been great
Yeah.
having you. The
Thank you,
Peer-to-Peer
Tim. My
Real Estate
pleasure.
Podcast. Give it a listen. I think if you've learned anything from this podcast, there's tons more over there. So, William, have a great day. I look forward to talking to you again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tim, for having me on.
You're welcome.